I was researching the Indian Affairs papers and I found something really neat. The Indians complaining about the Treaty of Paynes Landing, calling it a white man's treaty. So let's look at that letter. But I want to show you how I research. For first thing, I go to the Indian Affairs papers, and they're from the National Archives, and the National Archives has been posting a lot online. They just have too much to get through and don't have it all posted on the website. It is available on Ancestry, which for that reason I got a subscription to Ancestry. Now, also, if you're at the Florida State Library in Tallahassee, Ancestry is available through their computers, but you have to be in the building. They also have some of the microfilm available, and that's where this pages are from. So let's go to, I want to share a screen. Okay, we are on Ancestry.com, and I clicked on search here. I want to do a search of U.S. letters received by the Office of Indian Affairs. In fact, that right here. But if you want an easy way to find it, go to the card catalog, and I do a keyword search at Indian Affairs. Oops. And so that limits your search down. I want the U.S. letters received at the Office of Indian Affairs. Okay, we're here. And let me see if I can get it here. Okay, there's like 1,000 microfilm rolls. Now, the first one is roll number two, has the Apalachicola Indian Agency reserves. And that's pretty cool, but it's on the roll of annuity goods. So the Apalachicola Agency is actually like the last 200 pages on the roll. Microfilm rolls have everything from 500 to 1,000 pages. Now let's go down. These rolls agencies are in alphabetical order, so we want the Florida agency next. I go to roll 286. So I'm doing this really fast just to give you an idea where it's at. It begins on roll 286 and goes to roll 291. And there's also the Seminole agency. So the Florida agency, superintendency, and the Seminole agency, it's kind of mixed up. It's some of the same thing. It begins at 800, so roll 800 to 807 is the Seminole agency. Um, so let's go to roll 806 right here. It has from 1827 to 1846. So it covers some of Florida, and then it jumps out to Indian Territory, what we call Oklahoma today. So this is on the microfilm roll, and it has the pages right here. It starts off with a letter, I think this is Gad Humphreys, copy of letter of Colonel White to the agent of Indian Affairs. And so we'll go several pages like that. Let's jump to page 48. This is a letter from, I think, from Governor Duval to General Wiley Thompson. And so that's a little bit faded. You have to be able to read cursive handwriting. So yeah, this is some of the letter here. Next page, it's a little faded, unfortunately. Not much, but for much of it here, we can read through it, but it's very interesting because you'll find some things in here that you will not find in the territorial papers. So it's something you can spend hours for. And here's a letter from James Gadsden. Now, if you want to save these letters and not have the trouble of reading it on screen, you'll go to save, save to your computer, and it will download the file into your computer like that. So let me show you what I've done from there. And where share? From here, I have a folder of all the pages that I've downloaded. And when I download them, I rename them and I give somewhat of a description in the name, like I name it. This one's 341101, page 3. That's the date, 1834, November 1st. This main subject on that, the failure of the interpreters, and just things like that. So it makes me easier later on when I want to do a search and looking for a particular letter. And I have one here that I want to read to you. This is a letter. Here we go. This is a letter from James Gadsden to the Office of Indian Affairs. Wasassa or Wassissa, that's his plantation. It's like Leon Jefferson County area. A video I did maybe I don't know, about 6 months ago, or maybe it was a year and a half. It was in the cold weather, January or February. I actually visited James Gadsden's brother's grave, who's buried out there in a cemetery in Wakena near where the plantation was. So James Gadsden at times served as Inspector General for the state of Florida, and then he served as Indian agent. Later on, and after the Mexican War, he negotiated the Gadsden Purchase. So that's what he's more famously known as. We know Fort Gadsden is named after him. They built on the Apalachicola River on the ruins of Negro Fort that was destroyed in 1816. But anyway, he's has a talk here where the Seminoles are complaining about the Treaty of Paynes Landing and called it a white man's treaty. So that got my attention. I thought you might enjoy that. I'd tell you what the letter's about. Now, excuse me as I'm stumbling through. Sometimes I have trouble reading some of the words here. I have to go, when I transcribe it, I have to go back about 3 or 4 times to make it a good transcription. So I'm kind of reading this blind. It's Wassissa, November 1st, 1834. Sir, Captain Russell was with me yesterday and reports that the Seminoles, in a late talk with their agent, General Thompson, have positively refused to remove next west under stipulations of the Treaty of Paynes Landing. Their objections, as I understand from the captain, are that it is a white man's treaty, which they did not understand as the interpretation at the negotiation was false. From the interval between the negotiation and the execution of the treaty and the unfortunate delay in the necessary appropriations for carrying it into effect, I had apprehended some movement of the character. Time had been allowed for the exercise of those adverse and secret influences to frequently, as you well know, interposing to embarrass the government transactions with its red subjects, and the opportunity from a change of agency. They changed Indian agents. Uh, uh, Indian agent Major Fagan was removed, and Wiley Thompson is now Indian agent. Seemed to be proportions proponents to those obstacles in the way, which could only be met or explained by those who had previously been agent to or witness of the negotiations with them. I am far myself from believing that the Indians have taken a stand at all hazards against feeling compelled, comp feeling the stipulations of the Treaty of Paynes Landing. Sorry if I stumble through here, but rather think that their late conduct in council is but a demonstration to try their new agent, and with a view either to delay or to as ascertaining what better terms may be obtained by a new negotiation with them. So that said, they're trying to negotiate better terms. I am well advised that the individuals behind the curtain who, under a pretext of sympathy for the Indians, conceal a motive of personal interest, have long since been attempting to persuade the Seminoles there at the Treaty of Paynes Landing. The commissioner obtained an advantage over them, and that if objected to that treaty, a new one more favorable to their to them might be obtained. I've deemed it proper, therefore, after what has occurred, to say to you that the negotiations held with them was in open council, are present not only of all the chiefs and warriors, but of many visitors from neighboring settlements, in addition to those connected with the commission, knowing that the Seminoles had, or on a former occasion, thrown obstacle in the way of the execution of the Treaty of Camp Moultrie, alleged that they had signed it under misconception of the terms and that the interpretations were false. I offered them the option at the time of the same interpreter, Mr. Richards, that's Mr. Stephen Richards, who I had with me, or uh, one of their own selection. They named Abraham, a faithful domestic of Micanopy, the head chief. In addition, the interpreter of the agent Cujo was present, and Mr. Richards, who I retained for my own satisfaction on the interpretation of each talk by Abraham. I referred to the other interpreters as to its correctness, and the chiefs themselves never intimated a doubt on the subject. I mentioned these facts. Much have likewise been communicated to General Thompson, that the department over which you preside may perceive how fallacious is the complaint made by the Seminoles, should you for a moment be dis dishonored to yield a a testing, I think, or something ear to it, a tempting ear to it, maybe. Your superior knowledge of the Indian character and to all the difficulties and embarrassments encountered in negotiation and executing arrangements with them will be a better guide under ex existing obstacles as to the Treaty of Payne's Landing than any suggestions which could come from me. I may be excused, however, from the particular interest which I feel on this subject, from any seemingly uh, official attitudes I may manifest as to the final success of what was certainly most uh, proportionally commenced. Yeah, sorry on stumbling through some of these. If I had more time, I'd probably transcribe it. The removal of the garrison at the Bay of Tampa I deemed at the time premature, and this probably with the delay adverted to above and the temporary uncontrolled influence which united individuals adverse to the government views have been able to exercise from the absence from the nation of the agent. I split this double page in half. From the absence of from the absence of the nation of the local agent for near 12 months may have been the exerting cause of the present difficulties. There was some time between when the previous agent left. It took several months to get General Thompson in Florida. You could therefore, in the opinion of the undersigned, too soon either reoccupy the Bay of Tampa or reinforce the post at Camp King, that's Fort King, so that by a show of military strength, you may demonstrate the ability promptly to enforce the final resolve of the government. These would be more certainly affected by no change in the existing arrangements, and I feel more than confidential that the uh, next talk with the Indians to that effect after the military dispositions, I think, suggested have been consummated will produce a change favorable to the immediate compliance on the part of the Seminoles with all the stipulations of the Treaty of Paynes Landing. So he's suggesting a show of military force to get them to agree to removal. There is even now a strong party as adv as adverse as advised by Captain Russell under the chief Duc de Lustiajo and others who are willing to migrate but have been threatened by the others with a view of overawing them. There should be immediately they should be immediately protected and every faculty afforded to them a speedy migration. Their departure would produce a most satisfactory uh, influence on the whole nation. Uh, that rough translation. So, respectfully yours, James Gadsden. So, that's a rough reading. That's why I have to read through. This is actually one of the better ones to read through. You could see some of the other letters I have uh, copied here. And like here's one of the different chiefs of the Seminole Indians, basically saying that they're starving and they're asking for more rations. Their crops were completely destroyed by a drought, and that is when is it? That's 1835, April 1835. So that's I think one of the causes that eventually led to the war is that they're starving, they're not getting their food supplies. So I thought you might be interested in that and some of the letters of the Office of Indian Affairs and kind of how I do some of my research. I hope you enjoyed that, even if I kind of stumbled through that letter.